Like any sufficiently massive cinematic IP, there are going to be strange character quirks and bizarre flourishes which fans can't quite make head or tail of. But there's genuinely rhyme or reason to these odd traits, whether the result of a filmmaker's left field vision for the character or the actor simply improvising something on set. I'm Sai for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 behind the scenes reasons for DCEU character quirks. Number 10. MERA'S suddenly changing accent. When Mera appeared in the 2017 Justice League and then Aquaman solo film the following year, she touted an American accent as you'd probably expect. And yet, when she subsequently showed up in Zack Snyder's Justice League, she bafflingly rocked a British accent, which left fans utterly mystified. What could possibly be the rationale behind such an incongruous, distracting creative choice? In actuality, it seems that Mera's British accent was the original choice for the character, and when Joss Whedon took over production of Justice League, he opted to have Amber Heard redub the dialogue into an American accent. Heard then simply kept the American accent for Aquaman, but Snyder was able to revert to his original filmed footage for the Snyder Cut, while also asking her to go British once again for the newly shot nightmare sequence at the very end of the film. All in all, it really just confirms that Zack Snyder's Justice League is a narrative cul-de-sac, as Snyder himself puts it, especially as Mera will presumably be speaking with an American accent once again in the upcoming Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Number 9. Potty-Mouthed Batman. Zack Snyder's DCEU movies are certainly noted for their edginess, and it's accurate to say that his interpretation of Batman in Batman vs Superman proved divisive in that regard. Despite the general enthusiasm for Affleck's performance in the role, many fans took umbrage with the character's willingness to kill criminals. In less offensive terms, Snyder also decided to have his Batman curse, as when he's about to be obliterated by Doomsday, at the end he says, "Oh shit." It's a strangely amusing moment, yet despite Snyder's mission of making these superheroes more realistic, mature characters, surprisingly enough, it wasn't his idea at all. In fact, Ben Affleck improvised the line entirely himself while shooting, and Snyder liked it enough that he put it in the final film. Affleck said in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, "I just improv that, I had a feeling it would work and that it would be funny. I improvised and talked to Zack about it, and I think this will really work because you just don't expect it." Number 8. Superman's hairy chest. Of all the things people couldn't stop talking about when Man of Steel hit cinemas almost a decade ago, it was Superman's voluminous mound of chest hair. Given that comic book stars almost always have waxed or shaved chests, it was surprising to see a superhero, especially one of the most iconic of all time, touting a rug on his bod. But as it turns out, this came from Henry Cavill himself, an unsurprisingly hairy-chested fellow who was asked to shave his chest for the film's oil rig sequence, yet refused, citing the fact that Superman was clearly shown to have a hairy chest in the famous Death of Superman comic. In his own words, he said, "It's something that I wanted because in the comic book The Death of Superman there's this bit where his costume's ripped and he's making the ultimate sacrifice and he's got this hairy chest, and I was like, okay, why is the perception that just because he's muscly he must have no body hair? And I thought, why can't we just do that like in the comic books?" And so we did. Number 7. Aquaman's unique greeting with his father. Early on in Aquaman, Arthur Curry meets up with his father Thomas at his home, and the two share a unique greeting where they embrace one another, put their heads together, and touch noses. Rather than a trait specific to the Aquaman character from the comics though, this was actually something that Jason Momoa and Temuera Morrison decided to do themselves. With both actors being of Polynesian descent, they opted to perform a hongi, a traditional Maori greeting which indeed involves two people pressing their noses and optionally also their heads together. Symbolically, it allows the participants to share the breath of life. It's certainly a neat addition to the Aquaman character, helping him feel rooted in a conceivable reality despite how totally extra the movie as a whole generally is. Number 6. King Shark's redesign. King Shark is another ludicrously entertaining character in the Suicide Squad, though that didn't stop comic book purists from calling out the character's significantly altered look from the source material. In his most popular iteration in the New 52 comics, King Shark was modelled after a hammerhead, but James Gunn made the surprising call to redesign him as a great white. In a now deleted tweet, however, he explained that the decision was primarily one related to practical filmmaking. He said, "I did tests with the hammerhead design which I love and originally thought I'd use, but having eyes on the sides far apart made it incredibly awkward shooting interactions with other people. You couldn't really see him looking at the other person and the shots tended to be too wide. But I was insistent on the dad bod from the beginning, as I don't think King Shark would have such a mammalian body structure." Ultimately, King Shark went down gangbusters with fans regardless, so it's tough to imagine many caring all that much about the change. Odd thought they might initially find it. Number 5. The Joker's shaved eyebrows. Love it or hate it, there's little denying that Jared Leto went all out with his portrayal of the Joker in 2016 Suicide Squad, substantially transforming himself physically to disappear into the role of the Clown Prince of Crime. Yet beyond the makeup and tattoos, there is one facet of Leto's transformation that's underappreciated in how brilliantly it makes us uneasy of his Joker, and that's his eyebrows. Leto had his eyebrows shaved for the role, as eyebrows play a key role in how we communicate with and identify others. If the eyebrows are gone, it becomes far more difficult to intuit what somebody is feeling on a basic unconscious level, and so they become more of a cipher to us. In that respect, it made total sense to remove that emotional tell from the Joker's repertoire, supporting the idea that he's a ferociously unpredictable agent of chaos, liable to do basically anything on the turn of a dime. Number 4. Ratcatcher 2 naps a lot. One of the breakout characters in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad was Ratcatcher 2, best remembered for commanding an army of rats and taking one of the rodents, Sebastian, as her pet. You might also remember the running gag throughout the film where Ratcatcher 2 needs a lot of sleep, and whilst this might initially seem like Gunn taking a cheeky jab at the stereotypical laziness of millennials and zoomers, it actually ended up in the movie due to actress Daniela Melchior herself. In an interview with the LA Times, Melchior revealed that after reading the part, she felt that Ratcatcher 2 would be a lazy character, and so worked that into her audition. Hilariously, Melchior fully leaned into the persona on social media as well, dubbing herself Napcatcher while allegedly sleeping on the set of The Suicide Squad as her castmates danced around her. As much as this feels like a very James Gunn thing, it was indeed Melchior's idea all along. Number 3. Withdrawn low-energy Bruce Wayne. After Ben Affleck blew everyone away with his laser-focused performance as Batman in Batman vs Superman, no matter the movie's many problems, many were disappointed that his turn in Justice League seemed more withdrawn and unassuming. Some initially believed it to be an intentional flourish on Affleck's part, to cement how world-weary and beaten down his Bruce Wayne was as he attempted to assemble the Justice League. Yet ultimately, eagle-eyed fans began to notice the real reason, and it comes down, as so many things about Justice League do, to those pesky reshoots. Affleck was called back for Joss Whedon's lengthy reshoots along with everyone else, yet during the time between Zack Snyder's original filming and the reshoots, Affleck had entered rehab, resulting in a measure of weight gain. As a result, Affleck's weight fluctuated from scene to scene, which combined with Affleck's own personal issues at the time, amounted to him calling Justice League, and referring to the reshoots in particular, the worst experience. And so it's not terribly surprising that Affleck's Bruce Wayne seems oddly muted throughout Justice League, because the actor by his own admission had his mind on other things. Thankfully, he seems far more present throughout Zack Snyder's version of Justice League, which consists entirely of material shot by Snyder. Number 2. Superman's janky jaw. Even the most casual-minded of moviegoers who aren't chronically online likely realised that something was a little off with Superman's face in the Joss Whedon version of Justice League. From that opening scene in which we glimpse the Man of Steel's mug as captured by a boy's phone, even those with no awareness of the movie's behind-the-scenes troubles surely knew, perhaps just semi-consciously, that all was not right. And indeed, this feeling pervades throughout the rest of the movie, with Superman having a strangely robotic-looking jaw, as though Henry Cavill had just recently had delicate dental surgery and needed to hold his face in a very specific way. But the real reason for this, the aforementioned 2 months of reshoots intended to fix the film's perceived problems, requiring all major cast members to return to set. Except in Cavill's case, he was already busy shooting his role for Mission Impossible Fallout, which required him to have a bushy moustache. And so when Paramount executives rejected the idea of shaving Cavill and filling his moustache for Fallout with visual effects, Joss Whedon was forced to film Cavill with a moustache and digitally remove it in post-production. The end result speaks so off-puttingly for itself that Warner Brothers executives refused to delay the film in order to ensure they were paid hefty bonuses, while Cavill's Superman was left with a distractingly dodgy-looking CGI lower jaw. Thankfully, Zack Snyder's Justice League restored the original sans moustache footage, and the 2017 movie largely exists now as little more than a fading, if traumatic, memory. Number 1. Max Lord's chaotic energy. Wonder Woman 1984 isn't a great movie, but you certainly can't accuse Pedro Pascal of not giving it his all as the villainous failed businessman Maxwell Lord. Pascal gives a twitchy, sweaty performance with a manic vibe which many initially assumed was inspired by Michael Douglas's Oscar-winning turn as Gordon Gekko in Oliver Stone's Wall Street, but Pascal confessed he borrowed from someone a little more unexpected. While on the press tour for his recent film The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, Pascal revealed that Lord's uniquely chaotic energy was actually influenced by the work of his Massive Talent Talent co-star Nicolas Cage. Pascal said in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, "I remember shooting a scene in 1984 and in the instant I was like, what kind of energy do I need here? And I remembered Nicolas Cage. I remembered him jumping on the desk in Vampire's Kiss, kind of torturing his secretary. I remembered the scene and his energy, and obviously not deciding to do that, but just wanting a fraction of that kind of chaotic energy to make the scene that we were shooting that day work." It certainly did work, and that Pascal got to work with Cage a short time later, in turn delivering one of the best cinematic bromances of the last few years, must have surely been icing on the cake. And that's the list. Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments below, and any other DCEU character quirks that you can think of with interesting behind the scenes factoids and trivia. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe and hit that notification bell. I've been Cy for What Culture, and have a good week.